Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mind Your Business and Sit Down with Stephen. I'm your host, Stephen Meadows. Today, I'm talking to someone in a little bit of a more interesting slice of the market. So I'm kind of excited to see where this goes. We're going to be talking with Jason Wright, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Intentionally Inspirational. And he does some really interesting things with commercial real estate. And you know what? I'm just going to let him describe what he does because I don't think I'll do it justice. So, Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So, what's your elevator pitch? Like, what does your company do? What problems are you out there solving for the world?
Yeah, to keep it real high level with people, I tell them I just work in marketing automation, and they usually don't ask more questions. But more specifically for this audience, we work with real estate investors looking to raise capital. We use a program called Active Campaign, or we can use a program called Go High Level and help build out the back of the sales funnel. So basically, what happens after people join your email list? There's going to be automations and pipelines and text and that type of thing. So we help build that. We train you to use it, and we support you for life as a current client. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
So I've heard of Go High Level, and I've heard of Go Active Campaign. So
Yep.
what's the difference between the two? I know we get thrown so many different CRM systems out there,
Yeah.
especially in the real estate space, and I've heard really good things about Go High Level, especially. But I've also, I'm familiar with Active Campaign as well.
Yeah, the real estate space is absolutely just out of their minds excited about Go High Level lately. So we started offering it because the market just demanded it. But the two platforms are competitors. Go High Level is going to be more similar to like a HubSpot. It's a more powerful tool, right? And that can be good for the right type of client, but it has a larger learning curve. But the idea is there. It's an all-in-one, right? You can do websites and funnels and blog posting and social media management and all the email and everything in one spot. So I think that's why it's kind of taken this industry by storm. People just love that idea of having all one tool in one place, but there's pros and cons to both. I still think Active Campaign does the best job with just the visual, easy to understand, powerful to use automation and pipeline feature. They're still my favorite, but both platforms will do the same thing in that.
Gotcha. It's especially from a real estate agent perspective, CRMs are one of those like necessary evils.
Oh yeah.
But people don't generally like to use them. It's I've had conversations with agents in the past, and like for recruiting or whatever, and they'll say, well, my company just switched to this new CRM, so I'm going to wait and see how it goes before I make a decision. Nobody ever stays or leaves a company because of a CRM.
Yeah, exactly.
That person was gone in 3 months off to another company. I'm like, I guess that CRM, I won't name names. Guess that CRM wasn't what you wanted. So yeah, I had never heard of Go High Level, honestly, until maybe 6 months ago. And it was like, what is this? Oh yeah, I 100% agree. It's kind of came from nowhere. It's like all of a sudden it's the hottest thing out there. But yeah, it's pretty slick. It's basically like building that like sales funnel from like a landing page and like lead magnet, all that stuff. Because on the real estate side, traditional real estate sales, we don't generally have to build
Yep.
complex sales funnels. I mean, I think we
Yep.
should. I mean, I think we'd be better off if
Yeah.
we had something like that. We're looking at building out some of those things. So what advice would you give someone if they were looking at a situation where they were trying to do lead magnets or get really creative with that?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is you need to be using something. There's still people today that act like they just learned of email in the last couple of weeks, and they're like, yeah, I haven't really got to that yet. And here's the thing to think about, like most sales of any kind, whether it's buying a home or a widget or whatever the case may be, most sales take a lot more touch points than you think for people to close them. It could be an email, a text, an in-person conversation, whatever the case may be. In our business a couple of years ago, I assumed it was 5 to close a sale, and I did my research, and it was actually 15 plus. So everybody would do a lot better in their job if it involves sales if you followed up with people longer. You don't need to be pushy, you don't need to create false urgency, but simply continuing to reach out, even through automation, is going to keep you top of mind. So then when the time does become right, they're more likely to remember who the heck you are. So something to think about.
I think anybody who just heard that statement probably just like their breath probably caught in their throat when you said 15 times because most people can't manage two or three. So it's probably freaking them out a little bit. Yeah, that's it's great advice though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that too many salespeople make the mistake of one and done. Like, oh well, they didn't want my services today, so I guess I'll just
Yeah.
never mind. And it's like, okay, yeah, that doesn't that's not how this works. So
Yep.
when you say like don't be salesy, don't be pushy or whatever, like what are some good best practices that you have found work really well in those types of situations?
Yeah, I mean, be yourself. So we were talking before the show about being conversational. I'm the same way in my marketing because all marketing is building relationships. So if somebody new moves in next door to you, you're not going to go introduce yourself and be salesy and weird because who does that, right? So you can be the same way with your marketing. You can just talk to people. You can share value. You can share testimonials of other people that have worked with you, and just keep making those touch points. We live in such a busy time that people aren't going to remember what you said in 3 days, but they're going to remember they heard from you. So I always preach the touch point is more valuable than the content. A lot of people are like, that can't be true. It's true. Think about how many times all of us watching and listening today are going to get texts, emails, social media notifications, etc. It's hundreds. Yeah, be conversational. Don't overthink it. Just keep making those touch points.
It's funny you brought that up. I remember back in the day when I was actually training on the corporate CRM that we used for Coldwell Banker. I would tell agents like it doesn't really matter what you send, just send something. And they're like, what, huh? And I'm like, think about your own email use. Think about how many times you're scrolling through your inbox and something catches your eye. You may
Yep.
have never opened an email from that sender, but maybe it's a coupon for a store that you visit once a year, and they're having 20% off sale and you grab it or whatever. But it's just simply that recognition of, oh yeah, I get an email from that person every now and then. One day it's going to resonate and they're going to click on it and that's going to be the time they do it. And it really doesn't matter what the content of that specific email was. It was, yeah, I actually need you today. I remember you said something 6 months ago and
Yep.
now I have a need and I'm going to reach out. And if you hadn't have sent that email, they would have just probably kept on going with their life and you wouldn't have gotten the business.
Yep, absolutely. It's like when people have that need, if you're not there or they forget about you, they'll find somebody who is there or somebody they didn't forget about. It all boils down to brand awareness marketing. It doesn't happen fast necessarily. It can. But think about McDonald's and Coke. Like, it doesn't matter what we do, we're never going to forget about those brands in our lives. It's never going to happen because it's everywhere. And we don't even need to look at the ad or what it says. We just see the logo. We're like, yep, yep, yep. And we're just conditioned to know what it is because we see it every day.
So I know someone, I think it was a comedian, said, "Why do Coke and Pepsi even bother advertising?" We all know you either like Coke or you like Pepsi. I don't need a commercial to convince me otherwise. I've never understood why they spend all that money on marketing. But yeah, that's interesting. So from an investor in, I guess, an investor funding standpoint, that's a kind of an interesting niche in the market that I'm not familiar with as much. So tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so if a general partner investor is looking to raise money for a deal, it could be a syndicated deal or a fund model for commercial real estate. So multifamily, self storage, car washes, almond fields, whatever they're into. If they need to get equity, say they need a couple $1,000,000 in equity to get a deal to close, instead of taking on that risk and trying to do it alone, it's smarter to bring in other investors, share the risk, share the expense. And what we focus on is helping build systems to help nurture the different pieces of those capital raises, announcing the deal, nurturing the soft commitments, wiring money, signing paperwork, etc. So marketing automation, again, can make those great touch points to keep people who are interested moving forward in the process.
So do you also help source any of the deals, or are you just sort of a mechanism for investors to build their own pipelines?
Yeah, so we don't help any with the deals at all. So when people join their list, we have like an investor prospect pipeline. It's that new relationship thing we help nurture there. And then there's deal specific nurtures as well. The skill set is universal among any industry, to be honest with you, but needs to nurture leads. And that's every industry. So a guy that owned a big roofing company came to me and said, "Hey, I spend X amount a month on leads. We don't convert enough." I'd say, "What happens if somebody doesn't buy after the first call?" And they'd probably say, "Move on to a new lead." Well, lead nurture would probably save you a lot of money and make you a lot more as well. So that's an easy way to think about what we do.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a company. They do mortgage leads and also solar leads.
Okay.
And
Yep.
solar's a big business right now. And he said
Yep.
what they're finding is solar leads are extremely effective, like 3 to 6 months down the line,
Yep.
because people will like reach out and they're like, "Oh, I was just curious. Like I'm just vetting it out at this point." Cause like nobody knows how much solar costs. It's
It's
one of
not
those.
cheap.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, I could do solar panels on my house. Never mind.
Yeah.
But they get inundated with all the sales calls in the beginning, and they kind of freak out, and they like, I'm gonna wait. And then a few months later, if you reach out, they're like, "Yeah, we were thinking about that a little bit more, and maybe it is something that we'd like to do." And they actually find that by waiting a little amount of time, they're actually able to nail these companies. And the method they suggest using, or maybe it was one of their customers used this way, but he was telling me about it. He said they call and they call for quality control. So, "Hi, this is so and so from blah 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 solar, calling from the quality control department. I see that you had reached out for a quote, da 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 da," and it reignites the conversation, and they
Yeah.
have an incredible conversion rate. And I'm like, huh, that's a
One thing
really
that helps solar too is they get all those tax rebates. What I mean, so they say maybe 30 grand, but you get to cut your taxable income down a whole bunch too. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, and
but
that's
yeah,
one of those industries where you have to educate the consumer, and it
yeah,
takes a lot longer.
yeah, longer sales cycle. Yeah,
Right,
and
and
mine's the same way. Unless people are like problem aware and they're aware of what we do specifically, sometimes I'll talk to people like, "Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing." And it takes a little while to educate them and stuff, and that's fine. We don't push people to make a decision right away. So just keep filling that pipeline. That's the key right there.
I was talking to a colleague of mine the other day, and he mentioned he's in the prop tech industry, and he said we have to be painkillers, not vitamins. He's like, if you're
Yeah,
going to build a product, you've got to have some problem you're solving, and you have to tell them what their problem is,
yeah,
and then be the painkiller for that problem. Nobody
yep.
wants to take vitamins, but they'll be happy to take a painkiller just
That's a
to make
great.
the pain go
Yep,
away. And I'm like, that's a
yep,
great analogy. I love that.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love it too. It's same thing with what we do. It's like I'll tell people you're either feeling the pain now of not being able to scale what you do because you're not using marketing automation and systems like that, or you will at some point. But it's become your linchpin at some point. You're not going to be able to scale any further. That's true.
Mhm.
And for some people, they're already there, and other people want to get stuff set up correctly. And yeah, when they get to that pain point, they're in a lot of pain. So and the other piece is like our client facing group is all U.S. based, which is unusual with marketing in today's world. I have nothing against people overseas. We have an overseas team as well, but our client facing team is US based for a reason. So we'll be there to support you and train you whenever you're ready. So that's kind of part of what we talk about.
Great. So, who would you say is your ideal client?
Yeah, somebody who's looking to raise capital for commercial real estate, multifamily. If you're going to do syndicated deals and/or funds, and that's something that you want to be a part of your business going forward, we should probably have a conversation. Again, if you're a company, if you have a company that's completely unrelated and you have a big need to nurture leads, you should probably have a conversation with me as well. Because even if you don't ever buy anything from me, that's totally fine. But you're going to walk away from our Zoom call educated and maybe a little more encouraged and focused on what you should be doing. So, and that's really what I do. I'm an educator. That's my passion. That's my joy. I just happen to make money doing it sometimes too.
Do enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty lucky to have such a large a pool of people. There is a large need out there, but it's just telling them they need it. Oftentimes what's missing is that realization of, oh, you mean my note cards that I keep aren't good enough, or no, they're not.
We have a joke about. I talked to a guy one time, and he was like, "I use Excel. I use legal pads, post-it notes, and a rotary phone." And I was like, "Ha ha ha!" And he was being serious, and I was like, "Oh boy, there's newer technology you might want to be aware of."
Yeah. I know
So
it's crazy. So is your specific niche there? It's just for investors to basically nurture funding sources, correct?
yeah, so nurturing new other investors. Passive investor just wants to say, hey, I've got 50 grand. I want to diversify my investments. I got some stock markets, some physical silver, whatever. I want to diversify, but I don't want to do anything, right? I got a doctor, I got stuff going on. Those are passive investors. And generally, my clients are the general partners looking for new passive investors. So that's a big piece of it. But we help them nurture those new relationships, set up all that whole strategy and everything. And then when it comes time to say, hey, list, we have a new deal under contract. Here's what we like about it. If you'd like to get involved, here's how you do so, type of thing. We help with that actual raise as well.
It's pretty cool. And do they have to be? Oh, I forget the term for it. Like a
Accredited.
thank you. Yes. Is
Yeah,
that
so the people we work with, some of them will do 506C deals, which are for accredited investors. Some will do 506Bs, which are for non-accredited. Some will do both. So that's pretty common in the industry. What we help with, it's building relationships, so it'll work for either just fine. Yep.
awesome? Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and it sounds very interesting. And I mean, my wheels are already spinning on different ways. We may be talking later.
I love that.
That's what I love about this industry is that I've called it multifaceted. There's just so many ways that you can be successful, that you can make money, you can
Yep.
carve out your own niche. It's just such a fascinating industry. I absolutely love it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. This was a really good, quick chat. I will be sure to include your contact information in the show notes. But I have a feeling we're going to be talking more. And of course, if anybody has questions, I encourage you to reach out. If I was an investor, I would definitely see some value in what Jason's company does. So I highly encourage you guys to look into it and reach out. So thank you
Appreciate
very much. And
Yep.
is there anything you'd like to say in closing? I don't want to rush you off here, but
No, you're great, man. You're great. I was going to say, if you want to check out what we're doing, go to intentionallyinspirational.com. Love to talk to you, help you out any way I can.
awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you in the next one.